afternoon, everyone. Are you ready for an exciting panel on the scintillating topic of cross-border payments? It's an honor and a pleasure to invite the participants of this next panel. Jetstream is a cross-border logistics company, and one of the biggest pain points we see in cross-border supply chains is the delay and the cost of just making payments to the truck drivers, to the warehouse operators, to the customs brokers. So cross-border payments are integral to Africa's supply chains, and I have nothing but respect for these upcoming panelists. So without further ado, I introduce Muyiwa Babarinde from Waza, Ghanney from Wewire, Teslim Anifowose from Budpay, Okoro from Fincra. Welcome. So we'll start with some questions for the panel and an introduction, and then we'll open it up to the floor for all of your wonderful Q&A and dialogue. Let's start, if you can just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what your company does, what you do for your company, and your favorite Ghanaian dish.
Hi, everybody. My name is Uzoamaka Okoro, but you can call me Uzo. I currently lead the business operations team at Fincra, and that basically entails ensuring general company-wide operational efficiency, building strategic partnerships, and just general strategic projects across the company. Fincra is a payment infrastructure. We basically enable businesses, apps, accept payments from their customers online, and also disburse payments. So we're basically, we build solutions across the entire payment chain and ensure that at every point we're able to capture value for our users, which are business, corporate, right? Interestingly, I'm yet to try Ghanaian jollof, but wake, I've been taking wake since I was in uni. Wache, okay, amazing, yes, I love that, I love it so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Uzo.
Yeah, hello, my name is Ebenezer Ghanney. I head Wewire, so I'm the founder CEO. So Wewire help businesses do cross-border payments. We started off in Ghana, we expanded to Nigeria, Kenya, and Uganda. We currently have about 23 staff working to help businesses move money across. Yeah.
Favorite Ghanaian dish?
Banku and tilapia.
Ah.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Muyiwa Babarinde, and I'm here representing Waza. Waza is a B2B payments company, and basically what we do is we help African companies, make payments to their global supply chain partners. We help them access liquidity as well, for euro, GBP, and dollars. And so I lead marketing and growth for the company, and then go-to-market strategy for all our current markets where we currently operate in. And when it comes to my favorite Ghanaian dish, it's definitely not Ghanaian jollof. All right, so I would say I've not had the opportunity to, but I heard Shito is really, really nice, so I'm looking forward to that.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Teslim Anifowose. I work with a company called Budpay. I'm a growth lead with Budpay. At Budpay, we are a globally focused payment solutions company. We enable payments for merchants globally across 190 plus countries. My favorite Ghanaian dish is wache. I love wache so much. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Wonderful, lots of wache lovers here, me included. The use cases that we see for cross-border payments are varied. There are remittances, there are e-commerce purchases, there are many reasons why a person would want to use your apps to transact cross-border. I would love just to go around the panel and talk about the most common use case that your company sees for your application.
Okay, great. So at the moment, sorry, give me a second. So at the moment, the most popular use cases, actually two interesting use cases. One is that we see businesses using Fincra for accepting payments using cards, right, and mobile money with our platform, right? And this is basically, you have an online business like an e-commerce or a professional service company needing to accept payments on their website for their customers, right? And so they leverage Fincra APIs to enable them do this. The second bit is having customers, there's actually like a strong need for them to transfer funds from Nigeria to, let's say, China, right? Nigeria to US, just to bridge that, to enable them trade across those different markets. So basically, cross-border payments, right? Those are the major use cases that we see. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so on Rewire's end, I'll say we are not just payments, but we also help businesses with FX in terms of when to actually make the transaction. So one use case we had is, or we may have I'll use a typical customer of ours. He imports from Germany, he imports fresh fruits from Germany, Belgium, and Holland. And what he does with Rewire is basically come to us and say, is there a right time for me to convert my local currency to euros to be able to make those payments, or trying to time the market to make sure that they are getting the best price possible, because that factor of rates goes into their cost, and they don't want to pass that cost to their customers. So being able to help those customers is what we do. Yeah.
How did you navigate the currency crisis in Ghana last year when we saw the CD lose 70% of its value in a relatively short period of time? How did that impact you?
So it's all about talking to players in the market. So in Ghana, we are talking to banks, we are talking to FX brokers, and getting a sense of where the economy is going and be able to predict where price is going. So as those things were happening last year, we were able to price war for our customers to be able to hedge themselves against the inflation that went on.
All right, thank you very much. So for us, we've seen this trend of businesses that need to make payments, for the global supply chain partners. They need to pay merchants, they need to pay their partners, and it takes sometimes 4 to 5 days if they go through the traditional financial institutions. Now, for a business that is trying to capture the market and take advantage of opportunities, that's a huge delay, right? So we enable them to be able to make those payments to all those countries, from China to Dubai to maybe their partners in Hong Kong, whether they're trying to bring in equipment or they're trying to make a strategic purchase to improve their operations. So we enable them get access to the currencies that they need, and then they can give us, and they can pay out in whatever fiat they want to pay out to those partners. That has been the major use case for our own products. And we work with different organizations, multinationals, traders have found this very, very useful because they need it immediately, right? There's a huge, maybe they found an opportunity that they want to take advantage of. They don't have the time to wait for 5 days. They want to take advantage of it yesterday. And we provide them that ease, the flexibility, and the speed they need. Yeah.
Okay, I'll start by saying, SMEs are they power the economy, and I would say at Budpay we are focused on SMEs basically. So in Nigeria we have a whole lot of SMEs who are actually struggling to make sales because they don't have an online presence, and we have very simple solutions that allow these guys to sell online and project their brands online. So outside the SMEs, we're also able to assist global brands to collect payments online, basically, through varying methods. We know that in Nigeria, for example, the most common method for accepting payments is the bank transfer. I mean, when we go to East Africa and maybe Ghana, that may change to the mobile money. Yeah, so that's a use case for what we do at Budpay. Secondly, we're also able to assist businesses remit funds. So today, because we have merchants that we collect funds for in USD, we're also able to assist other businesses. For example, the airlines, we're able to assist them remit funds to make their vendor payments. We know that the FX market in Nigeria is tough. Right, and yeah, so that's where we also come in terms of remittances. Yeah, thank you.
Many of you talked about transactions between Nigeria or Ghana and countries overseas. Are any of you seeing intra-Africa regional transactions happening on your platforms?
Yeah, we see that a lot. So we see businesses want to move between Ghana, Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya. So we help those businesses as well. So there's intra-Africa trade, but the problem with intra-Africa trade is everything still price hedged to the dollar. So although it's intra-Africa, we are still interfacing dollar at some point in time.
That's a good segue. So Afrexim Bank sponsored the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, which launched a couple of years ago. The PAPSS system promises to reduce the cost and the settlement time of intra-Africa transactions by removing dollar settlement. I think it's a ledger entry, but the dollar isn't necessary in the trade. Kenya's central bank just this week adopted the PAPSS system, and it seems like it might be gaining momentum. Can you talk a little bit about how PAPSS would impact your customers and impact your companies?
Okay, so let me answer that. Today, we know that PAPSS was set up to be like a settlement platform for African economies to be able to trade amongst themselves. We all know that in Africa, we don't trade amongst ourselves the way we're supposed to, compared to the EU, for example, or compared to other territories. Yeah, so for PAPSS, PAPSS is supposed to enable that, and we see an opportunity there ourselves as Budpay. PAPSS has provided a platform already, and I mean, there is what is called like direct partners, like the Fintechs, who can latch on to PAPSS directly and ensure that they're able to provide that remittance capability for customers and for merchants. And we know that if this is successful, it makes the African economy better and much stronger. Yeah, so we believe there are opportunities in this PAPSS for the continent.
Can anyone? Okay, great. Yeah, just like Teslim said, like what I definitely see PAPSS doing or achieving within the African trade market is providing an infrastructure for scale, right? You're basically bringing on players. It's almost like the Nigerian settlement system, that's NIBS, right? That is basically enabling banks, fintechs, everyone leverage their system for instant payments. That's the same way I see PAPSS. You can also liken it to SWIFT as well, SWIFT payments and the SEPA, right? Because of these two different payment infrastructures, trade is made easier, there is economic empowerment, economic improvements, and you see that companies, or rather businesses in those different regions are able to leverage that system and make instant payments, right? So when PAPSS, we hope PAPSS fulfills its promise, right, reaches that promise, because I think it's going to be a big enabler of African trade. Yeah.
At the moment, you know, yesterday night, actually, during the welcome reception, myself and a couple of people were having a conversation about trade in Africa, right? And we talked about how AFCT has not been implemented, you know, to the standard that we want it to be implemented. The same thing with PAPSS as well. It's it's an interesting development. It has a lot of promise, but the scale at which it would have the impact on the African continent is if it has more adoption going forward. And I think everybody in this hall today has a role to play in ensuring that PAPSS is implemented. For us, we don't have a lot of intra-Africa trade at the moment, you know, at Waza, but that's something we're keeping an eye on, because it can literally open the borders for everybody to trade at the higher scale than we're currently doing at the moment.
Another piece of regulation relates to foreign exchange, and we recently saw the CEO of Flutterwave accompany the Nigerian president to a delegation, with his delegation to India. And now Flutterwave is working with the Nigerian government to ease access to US dollar liquidity. It's rare to see a government working so closely with a young startup to solve a core macroeconomic problem. What are your thoughts about this development? And on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being flash in the pan, 10 being this is a new era, how optimistic are you about partnerships between government and young startups?
Yeah, I think I'll go first. Yeah, I think it's a good thing for the ecosystem, whole, because fintechs can go the extra mile of reaching people underserved. I believe the product from Flutterwave is targeted at retail-focused people, so they'll be able to easily get FX instead of walking into a forex bureau to get fiscal cash. And we talk about digitization and everything. I believe this way is the best way to go.
Yeah, just to add to that as well, I think it's a welcome development, especially because the private sector, the public sector, we have to have more engagements going forward, and that's why I was really happy with the previous panel sessions, from the pointers we were getting from some of the regulators, talking about the Central Bank of Ghana and Rwanda. We need to continue to have those engagements with them and help them see how this innovation is really shaping, the ecosystem, all the players, from the customers to the partners to the merchants to even the end users, right? And share our inputs. We cannot expect them to come up with the solutions or the framework alone because it might be detriment to the entire ecosystem. We have to bring our input, our insights. We speak to the customers on a more frequent basis than these regulators. And I think it's a welcome development, and it's something that we should all support. Collaboration is essential for the next stage of growth in the fintech ecosystem. We know innovation would always run faster than regulation, but we should always try as much as possible to find ways by which we can contribute to bridge that gap. And I think it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. We have to continue to engage and engage and engage until we get what we want.
Practically speaking, how do you think about engaging regulators? Is there a strategy that your company has, or how do you approach that engagement? So many times, startups are sort of hiding from regulators to make sure they're under the radar. If this is a new era, if this is a promising development, how do you think about proactively bridging those gaps?
Okay, I'll just speak to that. So in terms of engaging regulators, you said, it's interesting you said startups typically hide, but I will say that's because, or that probably has been the case because in their specific area of specialization, there might not have been available regulations or, basically guiding their operations, right? And so in terms of engaging the regulators, for us, it would be at a point where we need to, bring a new product to the market, right? Or bring an innovative solution to the market. We're seeking regulators to see, okay, what are their thoughts on this? How can we position, is there an existing framework that governs this, and how can we build that together? Basically seeking their opinion. So we're working together, and it's not a case of, oh, we're hiding or anything, right? So yeah. Yeah,
to add to that, I believe everyone here has some point spoken to a regulator or has some form of license. It might not be in all markets, but in some markets we do have those licenses.
Yeah, then some of these conversations also happen informally as well. It doesn't mean we're totally hiding, right? We're also trying to get feelers to understand what is the central bank, thinking about, what do they think about this innovation and all that. And as much as possible, we all also operate within, the frameworks of the existing regulations, because if not, for example, maybe the product roadmap we have is really, really long and large, but we know for this particular one, we might have to pause on it for the next 6 months and have these engagements, see what progress we can have before we launch it as well. Because our own responsibility is to our customers, the security of their funds, to ensure that we don't also threaten the integrity of the ecosystem long-term as well. So finding the balance and continuing those conversations informally is one of the strategies we are using as well at Waza.
So you're talking about the integrity of the ecosystem, and that's a good point that bridges the conversation about cryptocurrency. So many of the cross-border payment platforms are sitting on top of crypto rails, or depending on the crypto markets. If you can just, by show of hands, how many of your platforms are affiliated with the crypto world? Okay. How do you think about sort of the risks and the security issues surrounding crypto as compared to the opportunities, the real opportunities to lower costs and accelerate transactions? Like, how do you think about those things?
Okay, so for me, license does not allow us to touch cryptocurrency, unfortunately. So we're still, until the Central Bank of Nigeria is able to develop a framework around cryptocurrency, we strictly deal with fiat currency. So I won't be able to say much on that. Yeah. So.
On our end, so we had to take a license in Canada which allows us to touch cryptocurrency. So we have that division of the business. And what we do is we invested in wallet systems that are secured, because when we started, we were using exchanges and we saw how exchanges were going down. And we said, okay, how do we invest in a protocol that allow us to hold our keys and manage our keys? So investing that into those kind of developments has built us into the place where we are comfortable enough to be able to host customer funds there or host our own money and be able to transact with customers easily.
Okay, yeah, so for us, can you hear me? All right, so for us, we leverage on stable coins, as a means of exchange for moving currency for our customers. So, but as well, we're always very, very careful about it because, some startups want to probably use, crypto to trade and all that. And because of the volatility, right, it can lead to huge gaps in your balance sheet. So you want to be really careful. For us, we mostly use stable coins to just ensure it's a means of exchange for moving currencies for our customers.
Can you explain in very basic terms, like to a primary schooler, why transacting in stable coins is cheaper and faster than transacting in fiat? Like, what is it about crypto that makes it more efficient in cross-border?
The ABC of it is in using stable coins, the coins are moving from your wallet to the end recipient's wallet. There's no intermediary stopping it, or there's no intermediary in that process. So you make it as fast as possible. So when I go to a bank right now and I want to transfer fiat, it has to be processed by the bank. It has to go through an intermediary bank before getting to the recipient bank, so which takes a couple of stages. Those people act as intermediaries and also to control and verify the transaction. On stable coins, the verification is done on the blockchain, so there's no single person in between that process.
Do you see a need in this space? So many of the use cases that you described at the outset were not necessarily crypto use cases. It was traders and merchants, people who want to buy things in another country and need the settlement service. The system that you're describing requires a great deal of trust between the two parties, even though it's supposed to be trustless. What standards or regulations do you think need to be implemented in order to make that crypto transaction safe for the merchant or trader who really doesn't care if it's crypto or not crypto, but just wants the certainty?
In today's market, probably crypto companies that touch crypto are more regulated or KYC'd more than companies that don't touch crypto. So I believe the processes are in place. We are always doing AML checks. We have the processes and all in place. We have to, because crypto can also be traced. That's one thing people don't remember is it's easier for you to be caught doing any bad thing with crypto than doing with fiat. That's the truth of the matter. It may take years, but everything can be traced to a human being behind it at some point in time.
So there's more scrutiny than ever, which is bringing
Yes, there's more scrutiny than ever, right?
good practices.
That's from my knowledge of crypto, there are actually also tools that you can use to, because I know one of the issues people have is the anonymity of these wallet addresses, right? So there are actually tools that you can use to verify a wallet address, to see the flow and the chain of the funds that have actually, been utilized by, the funds that have been sent to that wallet address, right? You can see if it has gone to maybe a sanctioned country or it has been used for an illegal source of trade, right? So that also helps to protect trust once some of those tools like chain analysis is in place.
Is it possible to have that traceability and have those security checks, but still have the benefits of crypto, the sort of decentralized settlement?
Definitely. Definitely. Because, I mean, if you look at, our regular trade transactions, right, with fiat, you still use AML tools, you're monitoring the transactions. It's like the basic form of KYC and ensuring you're not aiding and abetting money laundering, right? So you can still have those systems just to ensure that when the chips are down, like you have crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's and there are no issues coming up. So yes, the systems will still be decentralized, the transactions will still be decentralized, but those systems are put as a cautionary measure to enable like everything flow in the right way to the right people for the right purposes.
That's great. So switching gears to another emergent technology, talk a little bit about AI and where you see AI as benefiting your company and your customers. Nobody's using AI?
And, just to touch briefly on that, we use AI for our general operational efficiency activities, right? Currently in Fincra, emails, taking email notes, just no-code tools as well, just like plugging all of that in to basically simplify one or two processes. But when it comes to payments at the moment, of course, like when the capabilities of AI tools present themselves, of course, it's something that we will monitor and assess, when the right time is to jump in. However, I think that's basically all I have to say.
That's a great, so it increases efficiency with customer service, et
yes,
cetera?
Yes, definitely, yeah.
Okay.
At the moment, yeah. That's, what we use AI for.
Just to see what other areas we can use to improve our processes. To our previous answer, we always, what areas can we stress test within our own, payments rails? What can we improve? What can we change to improve the delivery rates and all that? We always try to do that as well. Then I think for AI, we will keep monitoring. We will see what works best for us in the future. But then one thing for us long-term is that the success of our businesses or the traders that use our platform, makes us successful as well. So we're also looking at how can we give them insights, maybe, for example, insights in the global chain markets that could help them make better decisions, business decisions, when it comes to optimizing their own value chain. We're always looking at how can we use AI to give them those solutions as well. But like I said, it's still monitoring stage. If somebody has a plug and play model right now, they can give it to us. We'll be glad to take it and run with it. Yeah.
Okay. Hello. Oh, yeah. So for us, AI is a tool that could be used for predictive analysis, for example, where you can also use it to determine or study the behavioral pattern of merchants that transact on our platform, right? Yeah. So that's where I see a very good use case for us, and of course we'll be happy to also explore further. Yeah.
And to add something to that, we use KYC tools, right? Like Comply Advantage, Refinitiv, and other African vendors as well. And we see that they are actually introducing AI into their product to basically solve like things around fraud monitoring, right? So that's also an application where it comes in. Basically. Yeah.
If you sort of step back, separate and apart from specific technologies, if you step back and think about the biggest obstacles that are standing between your business, your apps, and a $1 billion, company, or billion, what is it, $1 trillion naira now? I don't know. 10 billion, 10 billion CDs. What are those primary obstacles that are standing between you and massive scale?
I'll say Africa is very decentralized and fragmented space. So moving from one country to the other, business setup, so flying from, say, setting up a business in Kenya and they're asking you to be a resident and pay huge sums of money to get residence permit before you can be a direct. Those kind of things that stop us from, or slow us down, actually use the word, slow us down from being a billion-dollar company, say, tomorrow. But it might take time, but it's a pain work that has to go into the process. It might not take the same timeline as, say, Silicon Valley business that is targeting one market, which everything is one regulation, one everything. But here it's going to take years, it's going to take time. But if you are willing to go through that pain, at the end of the day, I believe it's going to pay off because it's still the fastest growing continent and there's still opportunity in this market.
When you talk about fragmentation, are you thinking primarily about that regulatory fragmentation?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So if anyone, I believe fintech companies, the biggest hurdle in a fintech company is not technology at this point, it's compliance, it's regulation. And to be able to get over that hurdle, you have to talk to regulators in every market. I love what Ghana has started doing sandboxes where they are bringing in players in the fringes of crypto and blockchain to come, the more hackathons and all those things. If every regulator is doing this, at least it gives them overview or give them insight into the space and they can be able to work with the players in the market.
Old-fashioned relationships?
Yes.
Yeah, then I think in addition to that as well, in addition to the regulatory, hurdles that we need to jump over, it would also be the education of the market as well, right? Because the people that are literally using our product at the moment are the early adopters, people that really understand how the payments rails that we're building works, right? So they have an understanding of the system, but then you still have hundreds of millions of businesses across Africa who are still used to the old ways, even though it is broken and inefficient, right? And long term for us, how do we bring those people into our own ecosystem and onboard them with these solutions that were built? That's our own approach towards it.
What issues do you see in bridging that gap? Is it more about awareness or is it more about trust?
Yeah, so trust is, funny enough, the same conversation we were having last night. So we were talking about, for the consumers, security of their funds is very, very important, right? So returns on their funds is the number one most important thing. If you have good rates, if you have very, very good technology, the first thing they want to say is, no matter how fine your UI UX is my money going to get to where you say it's going to get to? If you speak all the English or whatever language it is it going to where it's going to get to? So the people that are using it at the moment are people that have experienced us, right? But, no matter with the wide range of innovation we have in fintech, there's still some people that have still not gotten into the ecosystem. They're still saying, you know what, I want to see the bank. I want to be able to go there and owe them if they go with my money, right? So there's still these cultural limitations in African markets from some individuals who are still still trying to wait and see, are they going to be around for 5 years? Have they been around for 5 years? Have they been around for 7, 8 years before I go there? Also because even for traditional institutions like banks, there have been times when big banks failed in Nigeria, in Africa. And for some of these individuals, like when those kind of banks can fail, even with those regulations, what about these new startups that we're just hearing about for the past 2 years, 3, 4, 5 years, right? So that's like a cultural, limitation we're battling against, to ensure that we can reach $1 trillion in valuation. Hopefully sooner than later.
Okay, so I'll talk more about the trust, and I'll give a use case where I come from, Nigeria. It takes just a piece of news to dissipate that trust that maybe early adopters already have. So for example, there was a time that there was a popular fintech in Nigeria, and there was news that wallets have been debited. By who, we don't know. But, the next day, you just see people moving their money out of the wallet en masse, all right? Yeah, so the solution, I think, to this is more awareness. We also need the regulatory body to also be able to talk more about this and be able to ensure that the players are also well certified. The players are also, they're able to let the people know who the players are in the market and what type of services they offer. We all know that the only way to eradicate poverty in Africa is financial inclusion. I mean, if you have access to financial services, you are able to come onto the mainstream economy and you're able to expand, yeah.
Thank you for that. And this will be my final question. We can open it up to the floor. On the topic of financial inclusion, a couple of months ago, serial entrepreneur and investor Ian Aboyeji said in a public talk, quote unquote, "I would like to make the argument that it is time to move on from financial inclusion because it has not fulfilled its promise of helping the poor make their way out of poverty. Rather than giving them bank accounts, we should give them the tools to be productive." What do you think about his statement there, and how do you see your role in creating a bigger pie for people to transact on?
Okay, so I'll go first. Wewire focuses on businesses as of today. We intentionally didn't go to the retail markets because of certain constraints in doing this. So even with the businesses we focus on, you have people who are trading businesses by having registered their entity. So that person is technically unbanked because they are using maybe their personal account, not a business account, to do transactions. So what the steps to do? Now we are thinking about working on how do we help those people register their entities and before we bank them or before we do transactions with them. So there are a lot of steps that fintechs or startups have to go through to help some of these businesses or some of these individuals. It might take time, but we have to be willing to put in the work to make it work out.
Not to put you on the spot, you can, say you're happy.
Okay, so further to what Ebenezer said, financial inclusion doesn't just stop at maybe onboarding the financially excluded onto a platform. It has to be way more. So for example, you're just onboarding someone who before now never had a bank account. And I mean, the core need for the person is to expand the business, for example. And that's where retail lending could come in. So we have lots of small businesses in Africa who are not in the financial system because they don't have the capability to expand their business. So financial inclusion should also come with services such as small-scale lending. I mean, if someone does businesses every day, it means there is collections every day, and it means the person will have the capability to make those small payments every day. I'll call it like an end-to-end financial inclusion. I'm onboarding you on a platform. I'm also assisting you to be able to expand business. That's how you can contribute to the economy, really. Yeah.
So for us, when we take a look at the financial inclusion drive, it would be from the point of we are trying to build the payments rails for African businesses to expand their operations, but we're also taking a look further down the line to say what are the other things we need to add, to improve their performance in the business space, right? So from credit financing to working capital loans, so how can we help them do better in their primary responsibility of transacting, and we intend to create that for them. And like I mentioned earlier when we started this panel, there also has to be more collaboration between all the players in this space, because if Waza is doing $100 billion in transactions today, there are still some people who won't be able to touch, right? So everybody has a part to play in ensuring that we bring these financial solutions to the marketplace and to the end users, the customers, the traders, the merchants, because ultimately, if they're able to transact more with the world, then we can open up Africa and really, really scale the size of the economies of all the countries in Africa.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
On that note, I want to open up to the floor for questions for these great panelists. There's a microphone coming to you.
Thank you so much. My name is Leona. My question is to either of you, but it's really around trust. I'm sure that the typical Ghanaian Nigerian has experienced one shock or another on this financial adoption journey. Some years ago in Ghana, some banks were cleaned out. A lot of people lost money, huge sums of money. The financial or informal sector, mass market, typical kind of customer does not forget. They never forget that they lost money. Now, my question is around, if Ghana is made up of 80% at least of informal businesses, that's 80% of the entire population are within the informal business, how do you demonstrate trust if you want them to adopt your service?
I think I can answer this. Okay, so to answer this question, I believe every time we meet customers, trust in this market is two-way. I, as a business person trying to help businesses pay across border, I also have to trust the business I'm also going to work with, because there's a lot of regulations in the space. We have to make sure that we are complying with those regulations. You have to make sure that the customer is not moving illegitimate funds and all those things. But on our end, to show trust to the customer, we started off as a company which was full remote company. We realized that it was difficult selling to customers that way, so we had to go to a physical space that customers can come in. Every customer we have on board, we assign an account manager to that you can always talk to. So then we have a relationship we are building with the customer. We also have gotten licenses in some markets that we can show to the customer that this is the processes we've put in place for you to be able to trust us. So those are the things that I believe that as a company we can be able to do to trust, show trust to the customer, but also making sure that we also take enough information from the customer to know that we're also trusting the customer. Other than that, it might be the will of the customer fearing us, but we are at the end losing money to the customer.
In addition, from experience, I know that if you are able to put together, okay, so why these trust issues will come up is probably there is a small business somewhere playing solo, and is so small that it does not have a voice. Okay, and that's how African businesses are typically. So you could, they could come together in like a cooperative, for example, or come together as a group and have a voice. If they come together as a group and have a voice, of course, there'll be leaders in the group who will be able to interact with the financial players, and they'll be able to discuss more about the advantages of whatever services that they want to enjoy. So I think breaching that trust gap should also happen by them coming together as a group where they will have a very solid voice to liaise with the financial players. That's my contribution.
Yeah, my fellow panelists have spoken excellently. Just to add to that, in addition to relationship building, ensuring the reliability of our systems is something that is at core, right, to us, and like just generally how people and businesses can ensure trust. There are set standards for the way payment organizations are to operate. You have your cybersecurity standards, you have your data privacy standards. You're also thinking about what is the security of if, for instance, somehow your security protocols are being breached. What is the security, or what's the assurance that the customers have in still getting this money back? And that's where we think of insurance of customers' funds. How are we putting that out there? How are we ensuring that that's in place? So those are the things that we actually do as a business to ensure trust. Insurance of funds, setting up reliable systems, implementing and actually monitoring, because it's one thing to implement processes, one thing to implement the ISO standards, your data privacy standards, but it's one thing to ensure continuous monitoring and ensuring there's a governance around it. Yes, there's that, and of course, regulatory relationships as well. Right, businesses want, or customers want to know that they have some form of assurance or security that this business, this business I'm entrusting my funds with has some relationship with regulators in case of any issue that happens. They know that, okay, the regulator is aware, right, that this business is happening, and they can always leverage them just in case of anything. So those are the different ways that as a business we build trust, and general businesses can also build trust as well, in addition to relationships.
Just to add one final note to that, apart from the points that the other panelists have mentioned, I also think communication is extremely important. So if you look at any relationship, right, the breakdown of communication or of information is what leads to breakdown of trust, right? So it's important that as a business, you over-communicate with the customers just to let them understand, because there are times when you could even have issues with your system, right? But giving them that information in time and keeping them abreast is one of the best ways to build trust in your own system and the ecosystem as a whole. For example, one of the reasons why people look at regulators or feel like they are aloof is because that channel of communication is actually sometimes missing. You know, I remember during the first panel, you know, the head of tech for the CBN, for the Central Bank for Ghana, you know, mentioned that they had a couple of licenses that were free and people don't really know about it. And I'm like, you know, that's also a communication gap. So how do we also ensure that communication amongst all the parties within the ecosystem, from the customers, from businesses, to the regulators, you know, is improved? That's one of the ways to build long-term trusts in each operation. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Infospace. My question is this. The key problem to the success of most cross-border payments platforms in Africa is due to the lack of a stable rate, a stable exchange rate, which is a root function of illiquidity, the lack of access to Forex, and then government policies. Now, let me use an example. Let me use the Naira as an example. In the last 1 month plus, the Nigerian government decided to float the Naira. And we saw it moving from about 430 Naira to $1 to almost 700 and something. Now, the problem is this. If I'm a customer to a payment platform and I've repatriated Naira to you to help me send to dollars before the floating, I wouldn't want to collect my Naira back. And I want the dollar to get where it's going to, which is a problem for the payment platform. And that's how they make losses over the time. So how do you think these issues with the rates, the unstable rates, can be mitigated, or how can it be edged to make cross-border payment a success in Africa? Thank you.
I don't think any fintech can solve rate problem because it's beyond fintech control. But what we can do, or what we do at Wewire, is be able to hedge you or hedge our clients. So as I said earlier, we have clients that have constant flow. So you have businesses that know that every week I have to make 50K payments to supplier offshore. What we can do what we do as a company is we anticipate the flows of that customer and trade ahead of the customer's demand coming in, because then there's a relationship we build with the customer. We know, okay, this customer, and every Friday of this month or that, they come in for this transaction. So we basically hedge. We have a trading team that basically takes positions in the market against those transactions.
In addition, so I'll just talk about what we're also able to do for merchants that we do remittance for. We're able to lock in rates. So you're very correct. In the last couple of weeks, the Naira has depreciated so badly. And of course, that will affect any type of business relationship. So we're able to lock in rates such that we're able to have rates locked in for a couple of weeks, usually not more than 2 weeks. We just hope everything goes well. I mean, so far so good. We've been able to do this, and of course, for those that we know, the remittances coming, that we do the remittances for frequently. So the solution we've just been able to find to this is to lock in rates and accept the locked in rates, irrespective of how the market trades.
Teslim, if I can ask, what's your secret there to lock in rates? How are you doing that?
Okay, so we have I would say we have a team comprised of the operations and the strategy team, and we're just able to come up with something that we think, so we're more about the relationship bit of it. If we have people that we do remittances for, and we know that it's a sustainable business, and we know that the relationship is supposed to be long-term, I mean, I will not eat all my profits today and say there will not be any business again later, right? So that's just the secret to it. We're just able, a small team comes up with this, we predict what the rates will be, and we lock it in. So irrespective of how market trades, we're able to trade at that for the customers.
Other points here. So I believe for this relationship to work and the customers we work with, for it to work perfectly, what we need from customers is for them to also be transparent about their business operation. Because say we are working with Jetstream and we are transparent about your business operation, we get to understand the business you run. Then it makes our work easier in terms of predicting and being able to work with you to know how to reduce your cost on FX. But if a business comes to you that I need them to make a transaction today and just appear that, hey, I want to make a transaction today, but you want exchange rates that is unreasonable, we can't do that because we are not the government in that sense. Yeah.
Also, just a final note as well, we also sometimes proactively anticipate when there are going to be changes in the market. So for example, there's a policy meeting by the CBN, and from the feelers we're getting, there's going to be another change. We want them to make decisions beforehand as well, before rates change again. It's been really, really, it's been up and down over the past couple of months. Yeah.
Just to add, or rather summarize the points that have been raised, of course, on the customer end, you have locked the rates. There is ensuring from our business, right, that you're fulfilling the customer's demand. That's one thing. Then two, you're ensuring that you are preparing ahead, right? You're thinking about the risk, you're thinking about liquidity positions and all of that to ensure you're in a position to offer that rate or even keep a specific position, right? And then, I mean, we all know how volatile the African currencies are. So it's important to also state that, yes, there will be profits. There are days where you have profits. There are also days where you have losses. There are some days you really cannot just prevent it. But, of course, the profits always outweigh the losses. I think it's just important to state that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much to our wonderful panel for an engaging discussion. We have one more?
Yeah, I have one more question, please. Okay, thank you. I think the First Lady spoke about it, and it's still about trust. I remember that one of the panelists had mentioned the issue with a certain platform losing money and customers and the likes, and what you guys have really spoken about has been more of B2B, trust from a business-to-business perspective. But I think from a B2C perspective, it's entirely different. And consumer behavior in that regard is equally very different. But my question is, do you think fintech as an industry should look at addressing issue of trust as a collective rather than individual businesses just looking at addressing it respectively?
I'm going to just chip in something here. That's a very important point that you raised. And in Nigeria, right, we have this group of fintech founders and operators, right, and founders, operators, and I'll say stakeholders in the fintech space, where because we all know that the rate of fraud is rising. Fraudsters are becoming smarter. Tech is enabling a lot of, tech, AI, etc. is also enabling a lot of these fraudsters to become smarter. And for us, it's like we're seeing this trend, but we have to do something about it as a stakeholder, as a group, right? And so what we have done is to come together, right, to say how can we address some of these issues that we have seen. And so we have major stakeholders like okay, I'm not going to mention names, but yeah, there are some solutions being put in place to say we want to address this on a group and infrastructure level, because that's one way we can actually collectively stop these bad actors. So I'll say, like, in that case, that's how we're looking at it.
I think that's it, because she said we have to really, really fast. For example, the traditional institutions in Nigeria, they have like this committee, the bankers committee that they use to do this industry-wide approach. But like I mentioned earlier in the panel session, it's important for us all as part players in the space to always come together and also collaborate. How can we improve trust in the ecosystem? Not just like, Waza alone or Budpay or Wewire. How can we do joint campaigns to educate and bring awareness to these solutions that we're also bringing to the market? That's it. But it's a long-term game, to be honest. It's a marathon, in my own view, and not a sprint. So, yeah.
Thank you to our panelists.
Thank you. A louder round of applause, please, guys. That was a great conversation.